Deary me, we are live on a Sunday night after a shocking performance. Although I'm a little bit unsure if my perception of the game is slightly skewed, given I was sitting amongst enemy supporters in the Hawthorn cheer squad, which probably made my time a little bit less enjoyable, given they were pretty up and about, and some still even upset about some free kicks that weren't paid. Would you believe? But I thought we'll jump on, we'll get everyone's thoughts, and maybe some people's thoughts will align to mine. Maybe some people won't align. Maybe I was a bit too irrational with my thoughts, and it was a little bit heightened by some other factors that were maybe at play. But being there, it was not a great game to watch, it must be said. Hawthorn winning by 65 points. And look, I always thought that Hawthorn were going to win. So that was never really so much of the issue. It's more about how we play and what we do. And it just felt like, to me, it felt like it was one of the worst performances we've had this year. But then I've seen other comments saying there was large chunks that were good and things like that. I just didn't quite see it. I thought we lost a lot of it at selection a little bit and I said this during the week. I said on Monday night and again on Wednesday or Thursday night that looking at the lineups or potential lineups, it felt that we were one tall short going into that game. And I predicted that someone like Barras, Battle, or Sicily were going to get off the chain and intercept Mark and cut everything off. And sure enough, that's exactly how it panned out, with Barras just marking everything. Josh Battle, I think, was one of their leading disposal getters. Let me filter that. Josh Battle, 33 disposal getters, the highest disposal winner for the Hawks. Their defender, Josh Battle, would you believe? 12 marks as well. Who else had marks? So Josh Battle had 12 marks. It felt like Barras had heaps. He only had 5 marks. It felt like it was more. But yeah, just allowing them to do things like that for too much of the game was just crazy. Like, we were sitting it on Lynch's head. He couldn't run and jump at it. They were able to just hold him out, and they would intercept Mark. And we were persisting with that for the whole first quarter, and we got ourselves nowhere. So it was quite frustrating to watch, to be honest. And then it seemed like and felt like there was next to no pressure on them. As the game went on. And look, the Hawks are a good side. In a lot of ways, it's probably a fairly accurate reflection of where both teams are at, with them being top 4 and us being bottom 4. So in that sense, it's somewhat accurate, but it's still just disappointing when it just feels like we didn't put our best foot forward with that particular game. They're kicking it in long to Lynch, just did not work well at all. Metal, look, maybe there was some, I don't know, I didn't see many good signs tonight, but like I said, maybe my judgment was clouded with where I was sitting as well. I thought we showed more signs in parts of those games, albeit they were still not great games. I just thought overall, game plan-wise, selection-wise, execution-wise, it just didn't tick any box whatsoever. It just was shabby all around, I reckon. Tiger, I don't know if anyone did win any of their positions. So I guess I'm probably more disappointed too, because we're coming off the 9-day break. Like, I think everyone felt that we were going to be a bit more rejuvenated, a bit more energized after having 3 games in 11 days. But it just didn't go our way, did it? It was not great. But anyway, with that said, we'll get stuck in. If you want to have your say, the link to the green room is pinned to the top of the YouTube comments, so feel free to jump in. We might only be on for an hour or so, because I've got some Netflix to watch before going to bed as well. But we'll pop Shannon on first. Shannon, how are you, mate? Welcome.
Yeah, not too bad. How you going?
Oh, geez. I haven't been angry at the football for a long time, but I was getting really frustrated at this game. Like I said, I think a lot of it was to do with where I was sitting and being surrounded by Hawthorn people going nuts. So it probably heightened everything a little bit for me. But how did it feel for you watching the Tigers put out that type of display? And look, I know we're going to have ups and downs, but it still was frustrating.
It hurt. I think that's the word. Hurt and frustrated, because you could see. Obviously, I'm watching it on TV because I'm not in Victoria anymore. But it was hurt. It was just hurting me. It's the simple things that we were doing that we were stuffing up. Like, we had, I think it was 61 turnovers to 50. So that just shows you that we weren't taking care of the ball when we did have it. So it started to get quite frustrating. It was hard to watch at the same time because I had the kids in here and they would jump all over me. But it was starting to get pretty frustrating after a while, because you could just see that it was we're just wasting it. We weren't really taking our time. So,
what did you think
what you
about
saw?
this? What did you think about the selection piece about the amount of tall forwards we went in with? Did you feel it was adequate enough? Would you have gone an extra tall? Or were we happy with the balance of small versus talls?
Yeah, I legit, just as your thing popped up for it, I was just finished having my recording and crying to myself on my camera about the exact same thing. I said, you don't have Barras, Barrett, and Sicily, and you don't play another third tall. Because the other two are going to get shut down. And we're just lucky that Sicily's out of form. Otherwise, he would have just chopped us up and, he could have had the 30 disposals and 2 goals. So, yeah, no, I would have played an extra tall or at least a medium tall or put like a Sam Lawler on Sicily because they're the same height.
Which was interesting you say, because I thought that may have had to have been the matchup by default. But at the start of the game, it was Seth Campbell that was on Sicily. I'm like, oh, God, this won't end well whatsoever. But it probably wasn't Sicily early days that did the damage. It was Barras. But Hawthorn are an experienced outfit, but they did such a good job being able to, I suppose, body up Lynch and not let him get a run and jump at the ball. And Barras just was taking mark after mark, and then Battle was doing the same thing. I know Jonty Fall, and between Fall and Lynch, they just weren't able to compete hard enough and work it out because they were always outnumbered essentially by another tall.
Yeah, but it also doesn't help when you're Tom Lynch, where these days you're allowed to get slapped in the head and arms chopped, and the umpires don't call a free kick. So I'm pretty sure at the first quarter, second quarter, I watched up to 3 times up in about the 50-meter mark, and I just watched his arms get chopped every time. And as usual, Tom Lynch doesn't get free kicks for it. So that way it kind of doesn't help because I think it was 23 kicks to 10. So, you could see that they kind of get their head down because you're like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I'm trying to do the right thing. Yeah. And my arms are getting chopped. There's not much they can do about it, can they? They are only doing what the rules allow them to. So,
yeah, that's a fair point. What did you think of the first quarter? If I'm to take any positives away from this at all, I do think in the first quarter that we were doing okay. I do think as well that we've got a little bit lucky they were missing some shots at goal that could have put a margin on us quite early. But there was a point in time in that first quarter where we were generating quite a few repeat inside 50s, but we just had zero movement. Everyone was just standing there with their arm up, and I'm like, guys, lower your eyes. And look, people may criticize Uze for that. I'm very confident, and I hope I'm right. I would like to think that the instruction isn't to just sit on someone's head. I would like to think the instruction is to lower the eyes, but sometimes the way the opposition play can maybe make you do things a bit different that you don't want to have to do.
Well, I'm pretty sure going into the end of the first quarter, we were actually leading inside 50s by, I think it was 2.
Is that right? Okay.
So I'm pretty sure we had 9 or 10 to their 8, but they had unfortunately just, they kicked 3 goals. And it was 3-5 to our 0-3. So we were getting the inside 50s, like I said, we just weren't taking any damage. So we had polished them off. We had kicked 3 goals straight. It's a totally different story, but I feel like they're trying to play a bit of the Richmond 2017 where it was just, get it in there and Jack spring enough to get up high enough where Fall and Lynch aren't that, that small full forward that have that spring. They're that big, bulky, I want to run through the pack and take everybody out, and then the Crummers get to it. But if you're just going to blast it in, you've got 3 all Australian defenders on Hawthorn's backline. They're just going to gobble it up every time. And it doesn't work. Like I said, you can't do it. You can't have a quarter where you kick 0-3. We go to West Coast next week. I'm afraid that we do it to West Coast. West Coast is going to thump us. So it's a concern for me that Uze needs to address that going inside 50.
It's been our issue for years. It's maybe it's personnel. I don't know what it is. If there's other factors at play, but yeah, we've got to fix it up. That blast kick forward, it's easy for teams to work out. If they can make us just blast kick, they're going to cut everything off. And I think we said on Monday night, I think you'd almost rather a dirty ground ball in with the plays they had down there. We were almost better off just kicking it to grass, but it wasn't to be. The other disappointing thing for me as well was during the week, I actually really felt that we were going to have the better part of the matchup with our tall defenders on their forwards. But Marbs ends up kicking a few, and then Gunston kicks 3 or 4, and they kind of made Bolter Miller look a bit silly by the end of it.
Yeah, but I won't put much blame on any defenders because there's only so much you can do when the ball's coming in that much and that clean. It wasn't like Hawks were just spraying it in there. It was more like they were hitting their targets, getting them nice and low, and they were doing the right leading and cutting for each other and blocking, and just a well-oiled.
They were actually on the move.
Yeah, you could watch their patterns. Like you could watch that one would turn around, go back, open up a little pocket, cut in front of the other player. Wasn't illegal, so the player got an extra meter. That's all they need. Hawks full forward only needs a meter to get away from their player to get that ball and get a goal. So, like it's Hawks were what we were 3 years ago. So it just shows you that, with the right system, the right coaching, you can still be quite young and get yourself in there. So just need a bit more improvement on that. Defense, I'm not blaming anyone on the defense. I can't. Yeah, no. It's harsh. It's harsh.
They do get put under the pump. But I think what showed, to your point, the experience of the Hawks forward line and just their footy smarts, I guess, and how a bit further on their development they are. And while Gunston doesn't have the same spring in his step anymore, he's still very good at dictating where players should move to. That opened up the forward line really well for him. So they worked us over. And their small forwards as well were dangerous like I thought they would. I was dirty as that Nate gave away that free kick to Watson. That was legitimately there. Like Nate clearly got him high.
Yeah.
But it was. I don't like when we give away goals that we can't afford to give away, and even some of the 50 meters we gave away. It's like I know the one that Timmy Taranto gave away to Sicily. I know that Sicily probably did something he shouldn't have with like roughing up Morris Jr. or whatever. But it's like don't give them extra meters if we don't have to.
I feel like it was a bit of a play by Sicily as well. Like, I don't reckon Tim Taranto went out there and hit him at full power to get him to pull the ground. If you watch the replay, you can see he drops his legs because he knew Tim Taranto was coming. But I get more annoyed because then that's a double-edged sword there, because it's like, oh, hang on, you can't defend your mate, even though what Sicily did should have been a free kick going against him, because Morris Rowley was face down the ground. Like, what did Sicily have anything to prove of it? And if you go off the Geelong and Conga game, that's a free kick. Took his legs out. So, Sicily should be lucky. He's very lucky he got what he got. And I think then to do that, which was no need to do it in the first place, a bit of bullshit. But I appreciate Taranto.
Watching that replay, I don't think he stuck the tackle when Morris bounced that. I don't think there was a tackle made.
Well, it was the same with the
contacts.
It was contact, but the same was the Noel Bolter one where who wasn't got him. He ran, shrugged him off, and after he shrugged Chol, that's it. So after he shrugged Chol, he lost the ball, and they called it holding the ball. I'm like,
that's right. It wasn't a tackle.
More in a second, everyone criticised Harry Armstrong's one on Big Harry against bloody Brisbane, but I'm like, he had him for about seven spins and then lost it. Not I touched you fumbled the ball and it's holding the ball. So I kind of felt like the umpires, and that's the usual thing for Richmond, that free kicks always seem to go against us, but it's a common occurrence.
And I think he handballed it too, Joey, to your point. There was another one that someone else handballed as well. That was quite clear they handballed it, but it was an ugly handball, but it was a handball. But like I don't at all want to suggest that that's why we lost, because it clearly wasn't. The Hawks were much better than us across all four quarters, but it just gets frustrating when things keep mounting up against you, and you can kind of see it dejecting the players' morale out there as well. And it just kind of kills the mood. But who would you have said was our best player today? I mean, if we're going purely off statistical data, Jacob Hopper had 28 disposals, 5 clearances, 4 tackles, and probably seemed the best on paper. Truthfully, it was really difficult to tell being there up one end of the ground who the best players might have been, to be honest. So I'm kind of leaning on everyone else for a bit of guidance here.
From what I saw, I would say it had to be Jacob Hopper. I felt he's the most consistent. Like, I felt he played a 4-quarter game where you could see that a lot of players kind of faded out in between. There would be 10 minutes where you wouldn't see someone get a ball. But I think at one stage, Jacob Hopper was the leading disposal getter for everyone on the ground. I think it was like 15, and the next person was like 12. So I would probably put up Luke Trainer up there as well. I think he ended up having like 21 disposals. I think he had 8 marks and a couple of tackles. Not for his disposals, but I think it's because he's willing to take the game on. Like that goal for Trezise, it all came off his dare to take a kick going on the inside, then chase the ball, got a handball back, kicked it again. Like it's something you want to see from Trainer. Like you don't get high stats, but those kicks are just so much damage. And in a couple of years' time, he'll know when to take those kicks, because he will make the mistakes where he'll take that kick to help us, and then he'll stuff it up. But in a couple of years' time, he's going to be better for it. So I'd put him up there as well. It's probably the only two I really think that had a decent enough game to kind of give him best on.
Yeah, I'm on it. Honestly, we're going to do a 5-4-3-2-1 tomorrow, and I'm at a complete loss.
You have to watch it again.
I might have to. And we knew. So when we first put the idea up to do a play of the year, the intention was always to do a 3-2-1. And then we had that blinder against Carlton. We're like, fuck, we've got to get other people in the votes. Let's do a 5-4-3-2-1. And at the time, this is going to bite us in the ass at some point. And this is now that time that's biting us in the ass.
It's going to have to be one of those ones where you kind of have to go back and watch it again. You were there. You were at the game. Did you see Sam Lawler in the midfield that much? Because he was named in the centre. Was he actually in the midfield that much?
I'm pretty sure he started the game there because I didn't see him at half forward. I think he started from the first centre bounce, but he just wasn't getting involved. So I don't know what his minutes or centre bounce attendances would have been, but he wasn't getting his hands on the footy a lot. So I'm not sure if he was a bit sore or whatever it might be. But he came good. I suppose he did a lot better in the second half. But we saw in the last quarter again the importance and the value of him kicking the ball rather than handballing it where possible, where he hits those targets inside 50. Lynch had a bit of a dirty day in front of goal, which didn't convert the good passes. But his passing inside 50 is really, really nice. And, I just want to see him kick it more.
It's the point I made on my video. I'm concerned with this midfield that I know you guys have been saying it a fair bit with the Taranto, Hopper and Ross. I think we're going to have to find a way to start winning in the mid because we are getting slaughtered in there. Our normal go-to move is get the ball, Taranto gets it, and he puts on his boot, and hits about the 50 mark, and then you can rebound real quick. Where you watch all the other teams, they get the ball, a couple of handballs, and they run. And they run it out of the center, and they get that nice deep 35 to 40-meter kick into a leading target. I just think Sam Lawler is probably one of the players you want that kick to go to. I have the same opinion. I want the kick ratio to change to more kicks, less handballs, because he's probably one of our better kicks up there with probably Luke Train and Tom Brown. They're probably my top three elite kicks for us in our team. I just think we're going to have to find a way for that. Otherwise, I feel like it's going to be a rinse and repeat every week. What happened to today, pretty much. Obviously, you can't win against a couple of teams because, look what we did against Gold Coast. What's changed since the midfield game against Gold Coast to this game? I can't work it out.
It's the same players. It makes no sense. It's just a confidence thing. Yeah, and it's like logically, our midfield should have struggled heaps against Gold Coast with the pace and outside run and Matt Rowell doing his thing. I actually thought we would have been a better chance to break even with Hawthorn's midfield, being that we don't mind winning stoppages. I mean, we lost clearances 29-22, centre clearances 9-8, and stoppage clearances 20-14. But to your point, it's not necessarily about the differential of what the final total number is. It's how the clearances are being won and what they're doing with it versus how we're clearing it. And like you said, it's a Taranto blast kick forward versus a quick handball here and there. Then Newcomb and Warple are running to the edge of the square, passing it inside 50. Like, it's a massive difference.
Or having a shot on goal.
Or having a shot on goal. Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just a concern that I feel like that I suggested maybe a Banks or a Mansell. Like, it doesn't have to be for the whole entire game. It's just 10 minutes here. We're down by 10 goals. Well, what's going to hurt to test it out, to give it a crack? Yeah. We're going to lose. So what's the point of not trying it? I reckon Kane McCall will come in next week. For Jack Ross. I think that might be the injection of that bursting speed, an elite left kicker who tends to hit his targets pretty good every time. So
it's a good point on McAuliffe. I mean, he had 11 tackles, 22 disposals, I think it was, a couple of goals. He's done as much as you can probably ask of to come into the side. So you reckon it'll be for Jack Ross? It feels like we've kind of shifted him to a different spot again, whether it's wing, half forward, not where he was doing his best work. Do you get that feeling as well?
Yeah, he ended up having, I think it was like 13 disposals this week. I kind of felt either he's regressed back to what he was previously, not flying the ball as much. Like, you look at that Carlton game, that's what we all, he couldn't do it again. You can't make that same game again. That's not the kind of player he is, but you wanted something similar to that. I definitely think it's time. Maybe he just needs a breather, give him a break, go back to in the VFL and get some confidence back up, put him in the midfield, see how he goes. And I think that and maybe Morris Morelli Jr. will go out, and I think they'll bring Jasper Alger in because you just bring those two players in. It brings in a bit of goal kicking and a bit of speed. And, you can probably throw Jasper in the middle because they do it in the VFL every now and then, just to inject the midfield with a bit of speed.
Yeah, and that's why the VFL performance was so important to make sure there's pressure on the guys in the ones. And as long as form warrants it, I think we have to reward it. Like, I think despite Elgar not getting massive numbers on a weekly basis, he's usually relatively damaging when he does get it. And I think he's been like that for a month or so. And yeah, McCall's been doing really good work too. So yeah, I'm keen to see both of them come in. What did you think of Jaden Short's game? A few people are putting his name up in chat. He had a couple of really bad turnovers that cost us goals. I can't help but feel that we're expecting more from a senior player of his stature.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a bit concerned. I love Jaden Short, especially in our prime. I don't know whether it's he doesn't have the talent around him to make him kind of stand out a bit more. And now that he's kind of has to be the biggest star, back then we had Alex Rance, Dylan Grimes, Asprey. You kind of had that Hooley where he didn't have to do everything perfectly. He just kind of did his job, and that was all he had to do. Now I feel like there's a lot more pressure put on him to be the Nick Volstone and Nathan Broad, and I think to me it's very hard. Those two players have set a high bar; they maintain it. And who knows? By the end of the year, it might be time to say goodbye to him. I just don't think his form is warranting a game. There's just too many turnovers, lazy kicks, handballs that kind of he shouldn't handle when he does, and it kind of goes into a bad spot, creates a turnover. So maybe we could trade him away, find somebody else who's in their prime that maybe need a dashing long boot, or maybe get some draft capital in. But yeah, I'm probably at the stage of, and I love Short. I'm at the stage maybe it's time to say goodbye to him. It sucks to say, but you kind of want to keep that experience in. But right now, I just think his form's not warranting a game to me, in my opinion. Yeah. And that's what integrity was. What he said, integrity of form is what was going to give game. So, like, to me, Ooze has got to stick to his word of if your form warrants it, doesn't matter who you are, you've got to get a game. And, it's a good thing to stand by as a club, because then it shows you in a couple of years' time, look, you're not just going to get a game because of your name. You're going to get a game because of how you play.
Yeah, I think it's a standard you have to set. And I think the half-back line in general is becoming a little bit frustrating just because we don't have, let's look at what Hawthorn did, for example, with Jarman Impey and Weddle, who provides so much drive and run and carry off the half-back line that all their attacks are set up. But when we turn it over, I don't feel we've got that same person. I know we had it in Dan Rioli, but I just don't think we've had someone step up into that role to do that kind of thing for us yet.
I think that will probably be a Luke Trainer. That's what I think it will be, not this year, maybe in a year or two. I just think he has that marking capability, what Rioli did as well. Like Rioli, for as short as he was a really good mark still for his height. He always seemed to get up over his head or get low to the ground. And probably, I would say Luke Trainer is probably a better kicker than Rioli, but that's the problem. We probably got the players there, but they're just so young that we just don't see the talent there yet to shine out. So, look, we could be Hawthorn in the next 3 years. He's just going to take some time. Unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of therapy sessions going on week after week to recover.
Yeah, it feels like we've lost a yard of pace down back as well. Like you look at that, the goal that Watson got later, he turned Vlosten on the boundary line. They've lost him a few years ago. Could have probably run him down, and there's no Rioli down there. When we come up against sides that have got quality small forwards, I just feel like we're going to struggle quite a bit in that space too. Yeah,
definitely. You miss that speed that we did have in the back line as well. You kind of say it, and you kind of start to kind of clicks in your head that you're going to go, okay. The Rioli, the Hooley, those Nathan Broad in his prime was really quick as well for his height as well. So it's hard. Do we have anyone in the VFL that could play the back that is that speed, or is it going to be someone we're going to have to draft or try and get in from another club to inject it? Do you have any names that you would suggest maybe we'd bring in to do it?
I mean, Caleb Smith's the only one in the VFL that we could maybe try. He does get good disposal numbers, sometimes gets caught out with some awareness down back, but finds the footy okay enough, and maybe he's worth rolling the dice on. But again, you'd want to do it for a block of games, not just in and out. The other one that I saw on the free agency side of things was a Kane Farrell from Port Adelaide. So I don't know if he's recommitted since that list was first published. But if he was maybe someone worth considering.
Could you see him maybe throwing a McIntosh down there?
Don't know. It's really hard because we also want to get games into youngsters, but I think Macca's best purpose is served tagging. But is it doing anything now? Like you now start to question.
Is he tagging on the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. And like I thought the Hawks mids would have been hard to tag given the types of roles they play. So I'm not too sure. I mean, he was back up rucking is essentially what he was doing, which
he hasn't really. To me, they haven't. It worked once, and that was against Carlton. And to me, they've never really kind of committed to the same thing again. Like he will do the whole tagging, but it's for a quarter or two, and then they just leave it. So I'm not sure what the go is with McIntosh. I mean, do we need to just give somebody else a chance at the tagging role and just temporarily have McIntosh down there? Because do we see McIntosh staying next year, or do we see him leaving? So
yeah, I think you'd want to see the baton passed on, but it just depends on where these kids get to with their experience. Vertex, I reckon that Sammy Lawler, he'll start in the midfield when he's got 60 games under his belt, no doubt about it.
Oh heck yeah. Time he gets that cardio and he's built up for one pre-season under his belt, we wouldn't be surprised. And once he hits 100 games, he's probably the best midfielder. So even all the drafting reports where they're trying to look into who is the next Sam Lawler, and they can't find anyone for him. He's just that pure blend of speed, power, overhead marking, kicking, and handballing. So yeah, probably 2 or 3 years' time, he might be probably our best midfielder. So, or maybe it depends how Smiley goes. I'm a little bit down on Smiley right now. I kind of would like to see more from him, but
yeah.
Well, that's not a bad one. Hugo Ross Smith as a backliner.
Yeah. He could definitely play down there too. Certainly,
he did do it. He did do it under the Hardwick era. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but gives you a chance to bring Trezise back onto that wing.
Yeah, true. They could definitely shuffle some deck chairs around.
Oh well,
but frustrating. Well, any final thoughts, Shannon, on the Tigers of tonight?
I'll probably say to all the fans, probably not get too down on it. It's probably going to be what's going to happen a few more times the rest of the year. But just remember one thing. We're not as bad as Port Adelaide, who have lost 2 times by 90 points. So up you, Kane Corns.
Fair call. That's a good one. That's a good one to end it on. That's a good shout. I like that. I like that. Anything to shove it up Kane Corns is
exactly.
It's always an instant.
Where's Jason Horne-Francis now, huh? Mrs. Superstar now. Not getting smashed by 90. And they're the only team this year to do it twice. So
I like it when they're meant to be a top 4. So no, it's fair call. Fair call. No, thank you, mate, for jumping on. Appreciate your thoughts as always. And hopefully we can bounce back next week.
Well, thanks for having me on, mate. And hope you have fun the rest of the night talking to all the fans.
No worries. You too. Speak to you, mate. All right, Sarge is in the house. How are you, mate?
Yeah,
same shit, different day.
How
you feeling after that one?
I watched that game with 3 Hawthorn supporters in my mate's little garage. So,
lucky you.
Tough environment. Look, I don't think it's going to happen, but I really want Uze to swing the axe this week.
How heavy are you thinking to swing the axe? How big of a cut would you go?
I reckon MJ needs a spell. I reckon Shorty should start on the bench. And that's probably about as far as I'd go.
Well, so I don't know if anyone can verify, but when I look on the AFL app, it says injured next to Morris's name for sub, but then on Twitter it said tactical. So I'm not too sure which way that ended up being. But look, I think that's now. Look, I defended Morris being retained for this week on the back of the Melbourne game because all of the small forwards played shit in that game. So I didn't want to just pick out one person, but that's now 2 struggling games in a row. I reckon it's Jasper Elgar time. But he doesn't have the same pace as Morris, but he's a half forward. I'm all in for Jasper.
If he's a good kick for goal, chuck him in.
He kicked 0-3 at Casey, but then he kicked 3 goals the other night. So he does know how to find them. I
I knew we weren't gonna win, but I thought we would put up a hell of a bigger fight than that. That was atrocious.
Did it look like the game, did it lack energy and effort from what you could see on TV? Like I said, it was really difficult to pick that up whilst being there. It felt like we weren't doing much in that way. Like it felt like they were able to get through us quite easily, in particular after the first quarter.
We've spoken a lot about, like, as a supporter base, about the players dropping their heads and just letting them run away with it. I think that bold call, I reckon that happened after the scuffle in the second quarter.
You reckon we lost our way after that?
Yeah, 100%. I reckon the team spirit went downhill after that.
Yeah, it's good to see the young guys like Jonty Fall was in there flying the flag and doing all that, but you know, it's one of those tricky ones, isn't it? It's one thing to fly the flag and protect your teammate, but it's like, okay, make sure we show the same type of fight on the field in a football sense and don't get sort of run over. And like, again, Hawthorn are a good side, so I can understand and have no issues with them beating us. I just get really concerned when it feels like there was not as much effort as we're probably used to wanting or seeing in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like, I don't know, something was wrong with our forward line. I just can't quite put my finger on it, but like, Lynch was woeful. Like, that was probably the worst game I've seen Lynch play this year. Off the back of him kicking 3 goals last week, I was extremely disappointed in him.
Do you reckon it was because he wasn't mobile enough? I feel like if he led a bit more, like when you're playing against 3 good defenders in Barras, Battle, and Sicily, and we've only got 2 talls, and one of them's playing his 4th or 5th game of career football, I don't think it's a wise choice of Lynch, whether it's game plan or whether it's Lynch's own doing, just ask you to put your hand up in the air and kick it on my head. It's never going to work. I feel like in that instance, he needs to get a bit smarter about it and get on his bike and move. That's why Gunston got 3 goals, because he was on the move, went into the leading lanes, and they hit him up. I just think that Lynch all too often doesn't get on the move.
Well, now that you mention it, in the Gold Coast game, Lynch was moving up the ground way more than he was this game. Like, I don't know. I think he's regressed.
Do you think it's by design from a coaching perspective, or do you think maybe it's wear and tear and maybe he can't physically get up and back as often as we would like, and it's a bit of that as well? Like, why do we? Because we keep doing it week in, week out. So
he's at that age,
there's got to
isn't
be
he?
a reason. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I guess he's at that age. I don't know what to say about him, to be honest. He's a bit of an enigma at the moment. I guess we'll have to see how he goes next week against the Weagles, which, by the way, I'm not that confident on at this point.
No, well, one, we don't know which West Coast will turn up, and we don't know which Richmond will turn up. And we know we're going to have inconsistent games, and things like today will be part of that roller coaster. Yeah, I really did think that we would have a better game plan to try and execute going into the front half. And I think that's what, like in the first quarter, if we had have changed just our method of moving it forward, because we had about a 10-minute period of dominance where we had a repeat entry. I think it was like 10 repeat entries in a row for 1 behind. That's all we got out of it, because it was just kick to the hot spot, and the Hawks could pick it off.
Yeah. I think our scoreline of 0 goals, 3 behinds was, for the first quarter, was like basically just, it was foreshadowing for the rest of the game.
It felt like we were lucky they weren't a bit more accurate.
Oh yeah.
But then I was sitting there thinking, if we can just get 1 or 2 here, we'll feel a lot better about ourselves, get some reward for effort, and then who knows what happens from there.
Yeah, I agree. I just think I hope like Uze takes this game and really says to the boys, listen, this isn't AFL standard. Shows them the Carlton game or the Gold Coast game and be like, this is how we need to play. Let's try and figure out together as a family, as a group, how we can play like this more consistently. We have a 7-day break. I think we'll be okay for the West Coast game. I just think we need to really knuckle down.
Yeah, they definitely need to turn it around. And like we were saying before, like it's the same midfield crew that were shooting the lights out against Gold Coast, and we just couldn't get it done today. Looking at the clearances, Hopper had 5 clearances, Taranto had 4, Nankervis had 4, Ross 2, Lawler 2. No, the only ones with double digits. But it's all about how do we get better clearances? It's one thing to have the numbers, but how do we make them more valuable to us when we go forward?
Well, I thought Lloyd Meek absolutely towed Nank up in the rock. First off, that's a given. I don't know. I really don't know. I really want a better midfield mix, but at the same time, we can't just chuck Taranto up half forward because he left GWS because he was playing half forward most of the time anyway. And I don't know. Do you think he would do the right thing and do the team thing and play a spouse up in the forward line to give the younger kids like McAuliffe and Smiley when he comes in and Lawler some time in the guts?
I reckon we might see something like that as the season gets on, potentially. Because, he can play half forward reasonably well, but I'm not sure whether he would do that as a full-time thing. I think he'd probably still want a fair chunk of his minutes in the midfield, which is fair enough. But, I think as the year goes on and we need to get more rotations in, maybe we see some more half-forward minutes from Tim Taranto. We just need a bit more class around that part of the ground.
Yeah. That's actually a good point there, Silent Storm. There was a point where I thought Uze was like, "That's it, I'm going down to the bench." Like he
was getting pissed,
he looked really, really shitty at a couple of points, which is good. I've been wanting that from Uze for so long. Like he's just kind of I don't want to call him a pushover, but he's been a bit of a pushover, and he kind of just takes the punches. Like I want to see him get pissed off. I want to see him like yelling at the boys at quarter time or 3/4 time or something. Like just shows that he's like, I just want him to show that he's got a bit of a dog in him.
Like go full Ross Lyon.
Like I've seen Sam Mitchell absolutely spray the Hawks in the last year. It was their game where they got smashed by Sydney. He absolutely sprayed someone at quarter time, and then after that game, that was where things started to get better for them.
Yeah, I suppose we'll never know what happens behind closed doors, I guess. But hopefully he doesn't take too kindly to some of the look. There was some efforts there, but it just felt like on the whole there wasn't a lot of the same efforts that we would have liked to have seen to get the job done, which is a bit frustrating.
How did you feel about the free kick count for most of the game?
Again, like we've always said, a lot of the ones we give away are often there. The only two that I'll say that I don't think were there, I don't think Morris Jr. should have been done for holding the ball. I don't think it was a tackle. And I don't think the one Chol on Bolter was a tackle either. I think they were both wrong. But a lot of the other ones are okay. But it's when like Hopper gets pinned for holding the ball at a stoppage and then Newcomb gets tackled and could have handballed, it doesn't get paid. Like there's a lot of similar incidents that happened that aren't paid both ways. And I think what was irking me a little bit more is that there was Hawthorn people around me who still felt they were on the wrong side of the ledger. I saw you say that. Tough. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, what are we doing? But again, it's not why we lost, but it definitely doesn't make your life easy when you can't really get anything going your way.
I have to tell so many people in my life, like, it's not the free kicks we give away, it's the ones we don't get that are there. Yeah. And they don't, and no one seems to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I think most people will be okay with the ones that we give away. But look, it's just going to be one of those inconsistent moments, isn't it?
Yeah. The Hawks are a bloody good side. I enjoy watching them. I just didn't enjoy watching them today.
They are a good side. I reckon, though, if they were playing a better team today, they might have got done. I think they were still very sloppy. Yeah, especially early, they were still very sloppy. And even like my father-in-law and brother-in-law, Hawthorn as well, they were like, we are still playing shit. We're just lucky that you guys aren't punishing us. So I reckon a better team might have got a hold of them today. But I think what ended up happening, though, as the game got on, they got more and more confidence and they were starting to feel better about themselves and they got a bit cleaner. And then by the third and fourth quarter, they were operating pretty well. But early days, they maybe weren't as smooth as what they could have been.
Would you give Miller a spell and bring Blight back in? I just thought of that.
I don't know. I mean, Blight hasn't really. He's done okay in the VFL game just gone. I thought Campbell Gray was probably the one I would have left in, but Blight's probably a better mark than probably all three of them. If you'd have put them all side by side, Blight's probably your best athletically gifted player.
I wouldn't mind seeing because we've seen the Miller Bolter combo. I want to see the Blight Bolter combo.
Yeah, okay.
Because I feel like I don't know. There's something about Blight and just the way he presents himself. I feel like he's got a little bit of that dog in him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll find himself back in at some stage. It does feel like the coaching staff. Reluctance is probably not the right word, but I think they value what Miller adds to the side from like a one-on-one perspective that maybe gets overlooked a little bit. But yeah, it would be good to see Blight back in at some point. He obviously was a little bit a victim of being thrown around to a few different positions too, which didn't help him. I thought he tried his best and did okay, but
I think it's because we've chucked the number 12 on Ben Miller now. We feel like we have to play him.
Yeah, there could be a little bit of that subconsciously, maybe.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but oh dear. Any other final thoughts on the Tigers?
I'm so excited to play AFL 26 later this week. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I just gotta keep just sticking fat and supporting the fellas, and I'm probably gonna get down to the West Coast game next week because
nice.
It'll be a game that we might win.
Hopefully, it's actually two-pronged. A win would obviously be wonderful, but them getting above us isn't the worst outcome either. In case they get a compo pick for Allen, so I think I would naturally rather win, but I think it's about how you win or how you lose as well, which also makes a bit of difference.
Yeah.
But, and on the AFL 26 point, I'm looking forward to it too. I'll be playing as the Tiger Cubs almost instantaneously when that comes out.
I can't wait to get like 35-3 as Sam Lawler.
Yeah, and just dominate the shit out of everybody. Yeah, agree.
Yeah. I actually said to my mates, I was watching the game with, I was like, I'm going home and I'm turning on the AFL 23, and my mate looked at me, he's like, oh yeah, blow off some steam. I'm like, absolutely.
A lot of people do that. Yeah. Go home and get retribution straight away.
Yeah. Just while I've got you, I'm finding this North Melbourne death ride very difficult because my mum and my brother are North Melbourne supporters. I subconsciously feel bad for them when North lose, but there's still a small part of me is like,
you can just internalize it. Just don't be so outwardly spoken.
Yeah, I have to internalize my happiness when North lose, but I also I do feel a little bit bad. As my 19-year-old brother has worded it, he's like, North Melbourne have been bad since before I hit puberty. He's now 19. He's gone through his entire high school life, and North has been terrible that entire time.
Oh, well, it's hopefully we can still get a good draft pick from him. But
yeah. All right.
Thanks for jumping on, Sarge. Appreciate your views and
mate.
support as always, mate. And I'm sure we'll touch
mate.
base when AFL 26 hits the PS5. So
absolutely.
Speak soon, mate.
See you, mate.
All right, JR, welcome, mate. How are you? How are you feeling about the Tigers tonight?
a little frustrated after this one, to be honest. There's a couple of things is the reason why.
I'm sensing a lot of
I've got a
frustration from
stat for you,
people.
the Wheelo ratings is updated after our game, and I've got a stat for you which will tell you how we went today. Okay, so we've got Hopper, Taranto, Ross, and Trainer. They were our top score involvement players with 5 each, equals 17th on the ground. So if you're going to sum up our game in one stat, that would be it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, that's not.
And with the with the centre bounce attendances, Lawler today was at 44%.
Okay, interesting. Do we know what he averages
been.
outside of that? It is more than what it has been. Okay.
Yeah, it's more than what it's been because on the there's an account on Twitter which does the totals, and it's only been like 8 to 10 or something like that in total number, but this is nearly half of the ones that we had.
Right. Okay. So maybe that's a little bit of a product of having the 9-day break and being a bit fresher. How did you feel he went, like Lawler? How do you think he went impact-wise? It felt like he was quiet for a large chunk, but then kind of hit his straps a bit in the last quarter. But the sting was probably out of the game by then.
Yeah, it just wasn't his days. There were a couple of things he did really well. There was one, I think, in the fourth quarter, Lynch took a mark on the lead, but there was a high ball coming in. Sorry about that. He halved the contest 1v2, and then I can't recall who got the ball, but they handballed it to him, and he delivered it to Lynch. So that was it. We're looking for little bits and pieces here and there, so that's something. But we know he's a good kick inside 50. But overall, it wasn't quite his day. It just didn't quite work out for him.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. But he'll learn a lot from playing that midfield role against your Warples and Newcombs and things like that. And like we've said before, it's just good to see that even though it wasn't his day for a lot of the day, that he didn't just drop away completely. Like, it was good to see him actually still get involved late and hit those passes that were really nice to see.
Yep. Another player I want to discuss, I'm starting the campaign for Luke Trainer to get a Rising Star nomination this week. He was our highest rated player today at 12.1.
Really?
He was number one
for the
for
team?
us. Yes. He was number one for us for metres gained at 438.
Yeah, so we had the 21 disposals. Yeah, 21 disposals, 8 marks, 2 tackles, 83% time on ground. So he's definitely staying out there. Yeah, it's a fair call for the Rising Star. I mean, what else does he have to do?
Well, couldn't be too much. Also, he had 21 touches at 90.5 disposal efficiency.
Is that right? He's a good user.
Yes.
And even what I like about him is even late in the games, he's still taking the game on with dangerous kicks. He's a good player.
Yeah. He doesn't look like a first-year player, does he?
No, he doesn't. I actually, in some ways, feel like he gets more involved as the game goes on. Like, I feel like I notice him take more dangerous kicks later on in the game when no one else is willing to.
Yep.
But no, he's special. Rising Star, I just hope us losing doesn't have too much of a negative effect. It typically doesn't. Like, we've seen players in losing sides get it before. But if we're talking about bodies of work, which is what they tend to go off, he's had a couple of really good games in a row, hasn't he?
Personally. Yeah, I was just going to mention the body of work thing. And also, he's related to a Geelong Hall of Famer, so that should help in his favour.
Oh, he'll get in easily then. Easily if he's related to someone from the Cats. What about Tom Brown's game? I thought it was interesting. Tom Brown looked like he went forward late. He obviously got that goal, which was a lovely kick from Thompson Dow that spot him up in the goal square. He could have blazed away himself, but hit him up nicely. What did you think of his game?
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good. He went at 78.6 disposal efficiency. I thought he was one of our better ones early on. Him and there was a kick he did in his inside 50, which Morris marked in the first quarter, which was the snap around the corner, which was really good.
Yes, that was a very deliberate and good pass.
Yeah, that was because I saw the photos of where you are. I was at the other end, but that was a good kick, and you would have had a pretty good view of that.
Yeah, he didn't have much room for error for that kick, and I saw that he saw where he looked. He made eye contact with Morris and knew exactly what he was doing. It was a very good kick, but in terms of him positionally, is there more value for him playing higher up the ground and forward, or is he better off in the back half? or are we still a bit unknown with it?
I personally like him back because that's where he's going to play long term. So just get games into him there. Because that way he'll get used to kicking to the wingers and getting used to how they run and all that kind of thing. So it makes it easy to hit the target that way.
Yeah, no, it's hard to argue with that. What did you make?
I've got another one I want to mention.
Go on.
Yeah, Sam Banks, 15 disposals at 100% efficiency, which is pretty good for him as well. Yes, 100%.
That is good. 3 marks, 1 clearance, and I feel like he might have been one of the players that was hard for me to pick up on sitting where I was sitting. Not to mention I had my kids running around like crazy people as well. But even Banks, it feels like he's had a good couple of games too. Like, is he starting to settle into the side and maybe starting to feel like he belongs? And this is the thing, right? Like, you've just mentioned a couple of players. It's not really the younger players that I feel like are letting us down. I feel like it's the older guys that have maybe dropped the ball a bit again. And I think we all felt that way at the start of the year too. Do you think it's that, or is it just a whole team going up and down roller coaster, which is going to happen as well, I guess?
I think it's like guys like him and Hugo Ralphsmith's another one. They know that they belong at the level. They're locked into our side now. They're not playing in fear of making a mistake and getting dropped as they may have done earlier in their career. I think that could be a part of it.
We just need the older guys to keep leading from the front, from the forward. Good question from Kane. Small forward setup. Well, it's not a question, but I'll turn it into a question. Small forward setup is not working. Did you think that we went in with the right balance of tall versus smalls? Would you change it up? Like, what do you think the right balance is? I know it probably depends on who you're playing, I suppose, but do you think we got it right or wrong today?
I personally would prefer we go tall with that extra spot because we've played the last 2 weeks. We played 4 small forwards and it didn't work. Obviously, against the D's, and it didn't work today either. And Morris was subbed, so his impact is minimal. And I do agree with earlier. I do think it's Alga time because he actually hits the scoreboard, which
and he
Morris
plays taller,
pressure, but not too much else. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we're going to be trading out, I suppose, isn't it? Like, Morris is going to be better for pressure when he's on, but he probably hasn't been the last couple of games. So Alga's not as good in that aspect. But what Alga does do, by contrast, is he reads the flight of the ball really well, plays a lot taller when he's in the forward line, takes those good contested grabs inside 50, which turns into shots on goal. And I feel like that's what we're missing because we're so reliant on Lynch and Fall that if they don't mark it, no one else is, unless they wear an opposition jumper. And I think that's the biggest problem we've got right now.
Yeah, I saw your tweet today about going, 2v3 in the tools department down there. And when you go bombing it long to down there, we got the result we were asking for, really. So it is a bit of a trade-off because if you're going to drop Rioli, you've got to question, do you go Alga or do you go a tall? And there's not really any other tools that are shooting the lights out at the lower level either. And the ones that have played at the top level, Armstrong was going okay and Bauer hasn't taken his chance. That'd be why he's stuck in the twos.
Yeah.
That might be one that goes all year for us.
And this is why, and that's why I suppose I suggested that I felt like that Campbell Gray could have retained his spot and played forward as just someone else to maybe have done it. But obviously they didn't go that way. I do think we've got to revisit it. I haven't had a look at West Coast defensive setup yet, but they might not be as tall down back. So maybe in a week like the West Coast, maybe we can get away with 2 talls rather than 3. But maybe now we have to go 2 talls and a middle size forward, which is maybe what Alga is. Maybe Alga's more a middle forward rather than a small forward. That's where having like those Jack Gunston types or Bailey Fritsch, Brody Mychek, like players like that who aren't key position size, they're just under that, but they're still very versatile and good marks. That's what we kind of need someone to do.
Yeah, well, I think part of that is that obviously the kids are too inexperienced to impact every week. And also when we go bombing it high, every single time we go in forward 50 don't help either. And because where you were today, judging by your photo, you would have seen that when we've got the ball in the back half, there is no movement up the ground to kick to. And that's part of our problem. Because
I think for a lot of the game was
high and no one, not even inside forward 50, there's no one leading, providing an option to kick to. And that's why we go high inside every time. And we get out marked and it goes out. And to give you an idea, today on turnover, the score was 63-25, 10-3-3-7.
Is that right? Yeah,
So-
okay. That's not
And
surprising.
that alone tells you what you were saying, that they're just intercepting it and they're just running it straight out because we are not helping our forwards with the way that we kick it in. We could have Prime, Jack and Lynch in there and they would still struggle.
We've got to get more creative and more active with that. And I would love to know how much of it is by design, how much of it is due to opposition pressure, and how much of it is going back into old habits. Like, I'm sure there's a bit of a blend between all three of those. And it's no coincidence. The one or two times that the players got on the run, like when Jonty Fall found a leading lane, led up to the ball carrier, takes a mark, and kicks a goal. It's not rocket science. It's pretty basic stuff, but there has to be logical reasons why we're not doing it that we just don't quite understand. But it's hurting how we're moving the ball. This is a good one from Silent Storm as well. Lafau will be ready in a few weeks. Do you reckon can he come in and play a role? Do you reckon, Big McKelty?
Yes, certainly. If we're going to go 3 tools, he's performing better than the kids in terms because he's more experienced and a bigger body as well.
How tall is he? Because in my mind, he's the perfect third forward. Like, I would assume he's shorter than Lynch and Fall, maybe not by much, but he's that mid-range player who can just bash and crash and potentially take some good grabs.
Yeah, he's athletic too, so he can get high in the air. But with the inside 50s dilemma, you would have seen at your end in the first quarter that even when we marked the ball 75 to 80 out, even though Hawthorn had all their numbers back, we're still not looking to kick short or have a lead to kick to. We're just going straight high and long every time.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a disconnect there between the mids and the forwards. But because they're both going to say, well, hang on, no one's leading, so I've got to kick it high. And the forwards will say, well, they're not kicking it to me. But it's both. They've actually got to work together.
If you watch other teams against us, if we get numbers back, what they'll do is they'll kick it across the ground, work it around the other side, and then hit up a lead. Like you said, it's a little bit of disconnect, I guess, and maybe just understanding of what we need to do. But it's all a learning, I guess. Like I said, my frustration might be a bit more heightened than it should be. But I know I just felt we were going to put up a better performance today. That's all. And look, the beauty is, the sun comes up tomorrow and we've got another week ahead of us where we can try and get some redemption and maybe get another win.
Yeah. I've got there's one that does help us structure-wise next week that McGovern won't be playing because he got concussed.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Right.
And the big frustration I have at the moment is that Melksham got cleared for that because it seems like Mansell is apparently the only one that could foresee oncoming traffic. And we've had about 10 of these now. And once again, next week, we've got a player missing due to concussion with this action of pushing, bumping, whatever it might be. And when they use this clause of eyes on the ball, which is an argument that is being used, that's out there, it's on social media as well from people that are defending it, it's irrelevant to the incident because it's the pushing and bumping which is causing these players to go into a pack and they're not balanced. They've got no control over where they're going. So they're not actually serious.
There's other examples. What will be interesting as well is if Darcy Moore plays again or whether he's out for another week. That will be fascinating.
Yeah, he played this week.
Oh, did he?
He played on Friday night.
Oh, yeah. I didn't catch the
last night.
Okay, so he played. All right, so he's back.
I'd heard that he had a bigger issue from that, but that turned out not to be true.
Right, okay.
Or he was well under play. So, but it's a big frustration that it seems like they tell us they're serious on these things, and when the time comes to do something about it, they never do.
They make an example of the first bloke, and then it doesn't follow through to anybody else. It's crazy, isn't it?
We went through this with the Manson one. If they did that with the Jimby one, we're not even talking about this now. Yeah,
that's always my thing.
It's funny when
the tribunal always have like one moment at the start of every year to set a standard, and they always miss it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We have one every week, and Mansell's one happens. We don't have it for 2 weeks, and now 2 weeks in a row, we're back again.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah.
Oh well, we should be used to it by now.
They're reaping what they sow.
That's it. Any other final thoughts on the Tigers for this week's game?
Just repeat the message of every other time. Just stick with it because games like today are going to happen. It's part of the rebuilding process. We're looking for little bits and pieces with the kids, and we are still seeing that. So they'll drop away towards the end of the year, but in the meantime, let's enjoy watching these guys develop into what they'll be. Because
fair enough.
I was saying to someone at the game today that Dimmers rebuilding year one was no good, and that turned out all right, and we're back there now.
Yeah, you're right. It's a patience thing. There's going to be frustrations along the way, but yeah, I'm sure they'll get their heads together collectively, and we'll hopefully bounce back. But thank you for your thoughts, Jay. I appreciate it, mate, and I love the stats as well. I love your work on the Wheel of Stats. So I will speak to you during the week, no doubt.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing the graphic Monday night.
Yes, I look forward to doing that video every week at the moment. So it's becoming a favourite. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, when we don't have a lot to look for, don't have a lot to celebrate on field, it's good to have something.
We've got to cling on to something.
Helps us in.
So may as well be that. All right. Thank you again, mate. Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
EJ with the grand piano in the background. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not that disappointed.
You know?
No, I'm not. Not at all. First of all, I'm going to completely disagree with Jones Racing, re the Melksham thing. Completely different incidents. The Darcy Moore one was similar, and I can't believe that one wasn't a suspension. But Melksham, Mansell was in the front of the contest, never contesting the ball, looking in the direction he was pushing, and pushed the player into the contest. Melksham was looking up at the ball, had eyes on the ball, and marked the ball. One was competing for the ball, one was setting up for a crumb. Completely different. We are still going to have incidents in football where people get hurt. Of course, we want to minimise it as much as possible, but you've still got to be able to compete for the ball. He did. It's unfortunate, but I'm completely fine with that not being a suspension, because if Melksham had had his eyes looking at the players in front and just pushed him in and then looked up at the ball, yep, okay, suspend him. But he was like that. He wasn't looking at where the positions of the other players and that were. He was all eyes up. So I'm completely fine with it. But anyway, I just think Hawthorn are a good side, even if they were messy and not playing well. I think we went with them reasonably well for about a half, and we just ran out of gas and fell apart. But I still saw heaps that I was really happy with. So, yeah, no, I'm okay.
Like
Jones Racing's taken about three quarters of the stats that I had up on my Wheelo site. I thought that was going to be a real good point to say that Trainer was our highest rated player on the ground. It was one of the first things he said.
Yeah, so I would never have picked that. And like I said, whilst driving home, I did reflect a little bit and thought that maybe my anger was a bit heightened just because of where I was sitting. And that's probably the downside of being at the game on level one where you can't really see everything. There's probably things I probably missed and didn't get a good gauge on. But you mentioned you saw some things that you liked. What were some of the things that you liked that I might have missed at ground level?
I know he only had, I think, 12 touches, but very happy with what Waller is showing. We're only seeing glimpses because we're not playing well, but he's so clean. He's so physical. And I know everyone makes the comparisons with Dusty, but he just reminds me of Dangerfield. And I think if we get 300 games of a Dangerfield type, well, I've got no dramas with that. Trainer was excellent. Brown was really good. What I've really liked about Brown in the last couple of weeks, we always know he's been great by foot, and it was really good for Jones Racing to point out that kick, because I was sitting with my wife at the time and he meant that. That was 100% deliberate. And then they showed the reverse view and you can see him pick it out and make the kick. We all know he's been elite by foot, but what I've really liked, and it was a criticism, and it was a fair criticism at the start of the season, he was a bit loose, is he's tightened up defensively and he's getting the spoils in and things like that. So I was really happy with his game. I know they run out of tickets, but Hopper, Taranto again, they're holding up their end of the bargain. So, but Hugo ran his ass off. He didn't do much in the attacking sense, but his defensive running today, he ran and ran. I don't know if that was evident at the ground, but so I'm happy because Hugo will replace K-Mac. You can tick that off. That's done.
Mm-hmm.
Banks is coming along well. Trainer looks just unreal. So the young kids look good. Some of the older boys, as referenced, a couple of people back, MRJ is just not a four-quarter footballer at the moment, and I don't think we can carry it. So I think might need a spell. And most of the senior players are holding up their end of the bargain. We have to start talking about Short more seriously than what we are.
You reckon?
Yeah. Look, I know he gets his meters gained or whatever, but he's making really simple, basic, no pressure errors. And also, I don't think physically he's giving us enough from a defensive point of view. And I think that there's young kids that we can develop. And part of it's not his fault. Is like he could go to a side like a Gold Coast now, like Rioli and Noble have done, and he'd be quite a good, effective footballer. But in the stage of development we're in, we've got Vlosten, who played really well again. We've got Broad. We've got the senior heads down there. They're holding up their end of the bargain. I don't think Short is.
I know I floated this pre-season because I wasn't sure how he was going to respond after a bit of a down 2024. Is there still scope to maybe try him in a different role? Because, like we said earlier, our half-back line's not functioning like it needs to at an AFL standard. And like you just mentioned, he's not ticking a lot of boxes that probably need to be ticked to play that role. Is there scope to try him at half forward in the midfield? Like, I don't know, maybe that's just tossing his name around just for the sake of keeping him in the side. I don't know, but it's not working for him at the moment.
I reckon we move past him.
I would love to see Juddy Clark have a crack there. And I think from what I saw in the VFL, I feel like they're starting to groom him in that spot. Yeah,
okay. I wasn't able to watch the VFL this week, so I have to rely on other people's thoughts. I'm a bit concerned. I'm sort of hearing that, maybe Smiley isn't coming on as fast as what we hope. But I like the idea of Juddy coming in the short role. Did you watch the VFL?
Yeah.
See, I'm a political nerd, so I watch the election.
So for the VFL, Juddy played a bit of a blend between halfback and wing. He had a really good, I think he ended up with like 13 or 16 touches for the match, but there was about a 4 or 5 minute period in the third quarter. He was really prolific, like running the ball out of the back line, hitting his targets and following up for another 1-2. Did some really good things. So he's chasing, his speed still looks really good. Dual-sided, just needs the confidence and obviously more run in the legs from obviously not playing for so long, but I think he can definitely do it. It'll be a big change for him because he's obviously played half forward and wing for a lot of his career. But I saw signs there that it could work, and we just need that attacking run off half back again. We need that drive.
Yeah. So what you're saying to me, it sounds like, is he needs another 2 or 3 weeks in the VFL to build the tank back up, and then
definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
And to further adjust, if that's what the role they're planning for him, and to adjust to that too. But definitely from a tank perspective, 100%.
Yeah.
But ticking boxes, right? Ticking boxes and showing positive signs. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. And to answer your question on Smiley, and look, Paul here is probably somewhat right. He's not. It's a really tricky one, right? Smiley's not in great form. He's getting okay numbers. My thing with Smiley, the more I think about it, let's consider his actual size for a second. 195 centimeters. I know weights are no longer visible, but we're going to assume he's about 95, 96 kilos, something like that. He's a big unit, right? The work rate for a midfielder at Coates League under 18s is far different to VFL and AFL. So I think there's going to be a period where he needs to get used to what it's going to take for his body to produce those type of efforts on a consistent basis. Like it would be like if we were asking Asprey or Jack Riewoldt to run around in the midfield. It wouldn't happen quickly. The size of their body is so different to other midfielders. And I think the work rate versus his body mass is just something he's going to have to get used to in the short term. And he's getting some good and he's getting a lot of contested ball, like at the bottom of packs and things like that. I'd love to see him play a couple of minutes a game on the half back line so he can utilize himself in space, use his kick, which is a good weapon, not for too long, but just enough to get him some nice kicks rather than scrappy handballs and blast kicks out of packs.
Oh, there we go. Right, okay. Well, that's good. And another player that I know he didn't touch the ball much, but I thought Fall is showing the right signs. And from an impact point of view, for an 8-possession game, I thought Steely Cream was all right. His pressure points were right up there. And I've probably been a bit slow to pick up on him, but I like him. I'm happy for him to hang around.
Yeah. But he and Lynch probably missed a couple of goals early that would have made a bit of difference to some momentum for us. But I mean, shit happens. He's still getting himself in some good spots. I saw he laid a really nice tackle on Big Meek as well, which would not have been easy to drag the big boy down. So yeah, he's doing okay. He's doing okay. It's what do you think about the small forward issue? I know I've asked a few people this, but do you think we went in with too many smalls? Should we have had another tall? Is 4 the right number, or should it be 3 and a medium?
We went in with too many smalls if we're going to bomb it in like that.
Yeah.
If we're not going to bomb it in, no, we didn't. So we went in with too many smalls, considering the way we played the game.
Yeah.
I think that was by Hawthorn's pressure, etc. I'm not sure that's how we wanted to do it. With the inside 50s, I noticed that we ended up on about 42, I think.
Yeah.
And Hawthorn had 51. So realistically, we've done okay to keep them to around about 50. At half time, it was 25 entries each.
Yeah, I think the biggest differential that, as a secondary point to that, I'm just scrolling through to my stats, is then looks at the marks inside 50. So Hawthorn had 21 marks inside 50. Their average is 16. 21, that's a massive number for inside 50 marks. And we had 13, which is actually above our average of 8.8. So we actually did better, but I felt like a lot of the marks we were taking inside 50 were in shit spots. Like we were getting, Hawthorn were giving us the pocket really deep, and they were really difficult shots at goal. So well played to Hawthorn, whereas they were getting those lead up lane marks that were giving them easy shots. So that was the difference, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, like I see some of the comments, about certain players not playing that well, and, their opponents played really well, etc. We just fell to pieces in the second half. I thought in the first half, structurally, we held up pretty well. We slowed up their corridor usage. But in the second half, it was like watching the second half against St Kilda, where the middle was just open and they just walked through. We will get better. We'll have weeks where this happens. They're a good side. It happened against a good side. We'll be okay. I'm overall, whilst disappointed in the scoreline, I'm not disappointed in some of the things I saw. And again, we kicked a couple of late goals, which shows, again, we're not dropping the bundle from a point of view of, if we were Port Adelaide, they're 90 to 100 point losses, but they're 60 point losses. It's not ideal, but we're not spitting the dummy or dropping the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And like to RFC Centre's point, it's still very valid that Hawthorn are a top 4, top 2 side, and we're a bottom 4 side, and that is the reality. I guess it was just frustrating because, to your point, that first half, like we said earlier, we had that 10 minutes of domination where we were getting entry after entry after entry, but we just kept bombing the bloody thing in. We just had to get a message out somehow to just lower the eyes, work it around, try and hit a leading target. But to be fair as well, Hawthorn did get numbers behind the ball quickly, so that made our life difficult. That's what good teams do. We're just not at the stage where we're able to think our way through it, and we just didn't have enough tools deep enough to be able to compete in the air. Like, we end up being 2 versus 4, and we're not going to win those contests.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times we're bombing it in is because we've had that slight pause at the half forward line or whatever, because we're not yet confident enough to pull the trigger, go.
Yeah.
And Hawthorn are happy to do that. So this is just part of the development. When we get the confidence, we speed up. The ball goes in quicker, therefore it goes in cleaner, therefore Lynch hasn't got 3 people hanging off him, etc., etc. It's a domino thing. We'll get there. It'll take time. But I liked a lot in the first half this week, and I'm reasonably happy. I don't like losing every week, but I'm reasonably happy.
Now,
And
I know you didn't watch the
Lowell
VFL.
North as well. So
Lowell North, that's exactly right. I know you didn't watch the VFL, but your man, Kane McAuliffe, will be bashing Uze's door down to get a game this week, I reckon.
Oh, beauty.
And it might be at the expense of a Jack Ross, potentially.
Yeah, Ross is just going, isn't he?
Yeah, they're playing one half forward a little bit, which isn't. Someone made a good point before. It's almost like they're Sonsying them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yep. But I mean, he's had many opportunities compared to Sonzy, and if it's not happening, it's not happening. It's not saying we're never going to use him again, but we've got to expose some of these kids that we think are part of the future. So if I can see in the comments, everyone's saying that McAuliffe had a good game. So I'm not going to say don't get him in.
No, true. He was good. He had 22 touches, 11 tackles. Like, was a beast. Kicked a really good clutch goal from 55 that pretty much got us back into the game to win it. I think he'll get a gig soon. If he doesn't, it's like, fuck, what else does he have to do? You know what I mean? Like, he's at a let's scrap the Casey game. But I think he's very, very close.
And just before I go, where is it? Greystoke. Right. Hawks fans are rapidly climbing the ladder as the biggest whatever. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I tell you what, some of their players are really giving me the absolute Edgar Brits. Watson. Oh, like, if he was playing for us, we'd love it. But, geez, he's good at getting under people's skin.
Yeah, no, he is. I mean, Nank got him high for that other one, but then, the celebrations and stuff. You're right. You exactly. I view him as like a Tom Papley. Hate playing against him. Gives the absolute shits, but you'd love to have him in this side. And I think, to your point, you kind of feel like that Seth Campbell could be that type of player for us.
Oh, 100%. And I know that, when we start winning games and Campbell starts rubbing it in, that at the moment everyone's happy. Oh, he's a good player, blah, blah, blah. When we start winning games and it starts to become annoying, they'll be, rah. He's a little yapper. He's this, he's that. So, yeah. Well. All right.
Thanks for jumping on, mate. Appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll rehash a little bit of this tomorrow night on the live show, but good to get your early thoughts anyway. And we'll have to get the votes as well. Make sure CB doesn't copy anyone.
Yeah, I think you know what? I think the votes this week will be very different. I can't see. I had a quick sort of second look. I can't see any sort of standouts, and so I would expect that the order would be a lot more mixed than what it's been the last few weeks.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes through. So we'll have a look at that tomorrow night. But thank you again, EJ. Appreciate your time as always, mate.
Have a good night.
You too, mate. Speak soon. And we'll finish off with Black Crow. Black Crow, thank you for hanging on, mate. Appreciate you sticking around. Right. How are you feeling about the game today?
Well, first of all, thanks for getting me on. I've been trying to get on the last couple of weeks, but my little fella decides to crash the party right before I queue up, so that's been good.
That's right. I know the feeling. Kids can be unpredictable, as can dogs, as you can hear from the dog barking. There's people walking past, so she thinks she's threatening to people, but she's not.
No, you're right. Like, in all honesty, during the game and after the game, I was a little bit annoyed, as I think a lot of fans were, but I had a bit of time to like cool off and reflect. And I really think that in the first quarter, we did display quite a lot of like skill and level-headedness, to be honest. It just wasn't reflective on the scoreboard. They were in the fight and they were in the hunt, and the young guys kind of showed their way. And I really thought that like Trainer, he's just been outstanding, I think, personally. And another one that flies under the radar for me is Trezise. I really think he's very underrated personally.
What did you think of him playing as sub? Did you like him as sub? And how did you obviously rated his impact when he come on the ground? He got a goal towards the end as well, which was nice.
He did. Look, as sub, it's difficult. Like I personally think he's the type of player that doesn't really do too much wrong, and I think he deserves a bit more of a start. It just depends who you'd put him over. Like obviously we had Bolter and all that back this week, which is a really good inclusion. But look, as having him as a sub, I'm neither here nor there. I think as long as he gets a game, I'd be happy with that. I think he's a good young player coming through, and I honestly think he'll end up being like Nathan Broad, to be honest, just a very under-the-radar kind of player and does his job well.
So do you see him as the other wingman, which I know Uze's been playing him as a left-footed winger, or do you see him as a defender or someone who's going to do both?
I honestly think he could be a bit of a swingman, really, depending on the game and the matchup. I think he can fill either role. He's got a bit of pace. He's got a great boot on him, I think. Like his disposal efficiency is pretty solid. And even when he floats around down back, he contests packs. And, I just think he's a very, very solid player. Like it took me a while to notice him, but even like in the earlier rounds, I was going, God, this kid's got some skill behind him. And as the weeks go on, he just gets better and better, in my opinion.
And the goal that he kicked, it almost makes you think, has he added another string to his bow? Like, is there something else that we can get out of him if he's got some good goal sense too?
In all honesty, I was talking about it with my old man because, as a lot of everyone here, we're diehard Tiger supporters, but he reminds me not so much as a player, but he reminds me a bit about Baker, because Baker used to do a lot of these different types of roles, and I think the club would be happy wherever they kind of put Trezise, because he proved he could go up forward and slot it between the sticks, and he just competes. To me personally, and I got slammed for it on Facebook because I was having a chat about it with some people before, but I love Tim Taranto, I really do, but I really think that he is just been a little bit lazy lately. Like he gets the numbers, he does, and he's a great inside ball and an inside like mid player, but he it's just the hack kicks. It just does me head in. Whenever he gets it, he just goes, chuck it on the boot and send it down 50 metres, and then often gets turned over and comes back over our heads.
Yeah, and I suppose that ties into the conversation we were having before about the quality of clearances. Like we might have the same number of clearances or close to as the opposition, but instead of that kick happening, they're kind of handballing their way through and then have a really nice kick inside 50.
And they're picking us apart. Yeah, in the first half, what I saw, like we showed up in terms of not necessarily on the scoreboard, but in terms of competitiveness, we were right in it. And it was just the bombing. Another thing that a few other people have touched on, I just don't understand why they think week in, week out bombing it into Tom Lynch is the best idea in the universe. It's just silly. Like but it's hard as well because we've got a few guys that are out injured, like McKelty, Lafau, and obviously, we've got Harry Armstrong who's dropped out, who I also thought started the year pretty well for a younger player. But there's a few injury limitations. I think once we personally get like Gibkiss back into the side, we might see even Noah Bolter drift up forward again. I prefer him down back, but that might be another option, so they could allow some smaller forwards to get around defeat, because obviously Bolter's quite athletic, so he can go anywhere he needs to.
Do you think I've thought that Gibkiss could be the one to go forward? Would you be happy to try him there?
Yeah, well, I remember, I think it was, I can't remember if it was last year or year before when we played the Swans at the SCG and we came back in the last few minutes. We ultimately lost, but they threw Gibkiss up forward and he kicked like 3 goals or something in the span of a few minutes.
I know the game you're talking about, because that's why it keeps triggering my memory, because he was leading up at the ball carrier, which is something we didn't see much of and we still don't.
Yeah. He's got a good set of hands.
He does.
He's got he reminds me a lot of a combination of two players. He reminds me a bit of Dylan Grimes just in terms of his football smarts, but in terms of how he can read the play of the ball and impact plays, he reminds me a bit of Alex Rance, not in necessarily overall size, but just in terms of covering the ground and getting to contests and not being afraid to throw his body at it in the air.
Yeah, that's a good shout. He's got good footy IQ, and I guess that's why everyone's so desperate to see him back on the park, because I think we all see and know these things, but we just haven't been able to see it. But I can also understand the appeal of wanting to have him in the back line, because if you think having Bolter, Gibkiss, and Trainer, for example, three really good intercept markers of the football, but then there's like the Ben Miller argument, where does he fit in? Because for all intents and purposes, it seems like the club's pretty set on playing him because his one-on-one stuff's pretty good. But yeah, I just can't see how they can all fit in the one back line. So something has to kind of give.
It's a good struggle to have.
It will be. It will be.
I think Miller, when he first came onto the scene, he didn't really do too much for me. Like, I just thought, it's another big bloke they're bringing in to try and replace like the likes of Robbie Tarrant and whatnot when he went. And at first I was like, oh God, he's getting towed, but he's getting a lot better. I think the main area, and obviously as a bigger man, he struggles in the side of is his transition defence. Being he's so tall, he struggles to get back. And I feel like that's what I was going to touch on earlier. For me, it was a tale of two halves. I feel like in the first quarter, we were really good, but just couldn't put it on in the scoreboard because our forward line entry was very below average, in my opinion. But in the second half, when Hawthorn kind of figured out what we were all about and what we were doing, they were using the overlap handball, overlap run, and used our own game against us, in essence, and they just picked us apart because they were far too quick and they're way better by hand and foot than we currently are. And I think as time will just tell, really, like it'll just take games, and I've accepted the realities as well, and I think a lot of other supporters have, that it's, we are in that rebuild phase and there's going to be games where we get absolutely monstered, but it's just part of the learning process. And I think it's good to see the young fellas having a run, and I don't think he deserves all the flack that he gets. I think he's been dealt quite a hard hand. He does in these presses, when I watch him every now and then in the press conference, he says some stuff and I'm like, oh, mate, it'd be nice if you kind of put the fire up the team a little bit. But, he's the coach at the end of the day. He's got the job, not me.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so you reckon that, I suppose, in terms of our development, it's just a patience game? You're on board for that? What is it, like the 50, 60, 70 game mark? And hopefully we'll start seeing all that overlap handball come into play. Because you're right, like that first half, well, the first quarter in particular, we did see it. Like we were building up nicely. We just broke down at that half forward line, didn't we? We just couldn't hit a target to save ourselves.
Yeah, I honestly, everyone slams the back line for a lot of the weeks. I'll go on Facebook and read through stuff and they'll slam a lot of the back line players. And I'm like, well, our midfields and forwards have to stop it from getting down to the back line. The back line players can't defend the whole game. They're just going to get exhausted. And 100%. To that being said, I think they're doing a phenomenal job. Like if we didn't have Broad, Vlosten or Bolter, we would have had 200 points put on us. We would have got absolutely demolished. And I just think in terms of waiting, like throughout the years of the glory years, so to speak, especially in 2018, when we were the team to beat and we got knocked out by Collingwood and whatnot. I think for me, I started to go, oh no, we're on the down. And then obviously we got another premiership the year after. And went back to back. And then I think around after COVID and whatnot for me, I had too much high expectations for the aging players and whatnot, when now I think over the last probably 6 to 12 months, I've gone, okay, this is what we've got. We've got no Dusty, no Koch, no Rewalt. They're all starting over essentially. So it's really exciting. And I, for me personally and any other viewers, I don't even look at the scoreboard. I kind of cover it on the TV screen now and just see the game for what it is.
It's an interesting way to do it. I don't mind that. Because, it is easy to get caught up in the numbers. And it's difficult because I suppose footy, as the old cliche goes, is a results-driven game. But when you're in the position that we're in, it still probably feels a bit different, doesn't it? Like, I know we've said it a few times ourselves, that it's all about finding the small moments, like your Lawlers in the last quarter, hitting targets beautifully. And even though he probably got let down by some of the conversions, seeing those things and seeing what we can hopefully see on a 4-quarter basis in the future is what it's all about for us currently.
Yeah, 100%. And for like Lawler, everyone keeps putting so much weight on this kid's shoulders, like what he's 18, and everyone's comparing him to the GOAT himself, in Dusty. And I think it's a very unfair comparison. Like, when you think about it, when Dusty was drafted, he didn't really have any comparisons put towards him. And I think that's what kind of allowed him to become the player that he was. So I'm hoping that this doesn't affect Lawler in the long term, because I think he's a great inside player. He's very physical and he's a very smart footballer. And I really love his use of hands. I think he's got a very phenomenal handball. And obviously his foot too, but his handball game is what I'm most impressed with. And as he plays more and more, his tank's going to build. And, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, whether they play him like a Dusty/Danger and do midfield, or they'll do midfield forward. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with him in the long term. But I think it's a very, very exciting prospect with him. And I honestly think that, like Luke Traynor as well, I can't praise that kid enough. I honestly think he's probably the best replacement to Dylan Grimes that we'll get. I rate him very highly.
It's scary how comfortable he looks at the level already.
I honestly, if you didn't tell me his age, I would have thought like this kid's been playing for years. He's just got you can just tell. Like, I don't know about you, but when you're watching, you can just tell and you go like, this kid belongs. Like, he knows what he's doing.
And for me, even today, it wasn't even necessarily what he was doing with the ball. A lot of it for me is what he's doing without the ball. Like the fact he feels comfortable and confident enough to give direction to senior players, not just younger players. Like he's directing traffic from all over the park. That's rare to see in a kid doing that.
Yeah.
Like, that's got leadership written all over it. I'm so happy for him, because you could tell that he was I think he was a bit gutted he didn't go higher up in the draft. I think he thought, and rightfully so, he was touted like top 5, top 10, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad we've taken the punt on him. It's not really a punt, because there's nothing wrong with him.
I think it's going to be very exciting if they do stick with Gibcus down the back line. I think having him and Gibcus running off the back line is going to be very dangerous, because he's got a great boot on him. He's like, and another player who I really rate down back. He has his ups and downs, but I really, really like Tom Brown. I like the way he uses the ball. And he's even proven he can go up forward and slot a goal. So we're not short of options. It just depends on what Uze really wants to do with these players. And the only disappointing ones, so to speak, for me is a few people have touched on it. Maurice Rioli, as much as I love the Rioli name, he's had a few cracks, and I just don't think he's living up to the hype and whatnot that was surrounding him. And obviously, I think Daniel leaving has quite affected him a little bit. I think you can tell that in the way you watch, because of how close they were. But I do think that him and like other players like Jack Ross is, one week I go, Jesus, why is he playing? And the next week I go, okay, yeah, no, he's good. So I've got like a bit of a love-hate relationship with him.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bit like that. But thankfully, there's a couple of players knocking the door down with McAuliffe, and hopefully Jasper Alger gets a run soon. I'm trying, as we've just been talking, I'm trying to work out in my head, in the back line, like Voston and Broad are obviously on the later part of their career.
Yeah.
Who do you see taking over from their roles when they eventually retire?
Well, we know, I think, what did Broad sign? He signed another year, or was it 2? I can't remember. It was only a short extension. He did. And he said after that he was finishing, because I remember watching his podcast he did. But
right, yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see. I think if we stay the way it is now, and obviously we don't know what the future is going to bring with other draft picks and that, but I really think our backline, once they're gone, will consist of Traynor. I think Bolter, obviously, is going to be a mainstay down there. I really do like the idea of Jacob Blight being down there as another big body, because I think having a big body like him down there frees up the athleticism of Bolter to run the ground like Rance used to do.
Yeah.
I think they're my definite main 3. I think will be cemented in there. It's hard to say really at the moment. But I mean, I honestly think Trainor's going to be the best replacement for those guys, and I think he'll be a future leader of the club if he keeps playing the way he is. I really do.
I think so too. He looks phenomenal. Another question I want to ask, which I haven't asked anyone else yet tonight.
No, go for it.
There's a lot of speculation now in the media, and we've spoken about it ourselves, about Harley Reid potentially being on the table as someone that we're strongly going after. Now, So there was a poster on Big Footy from Carlton who confirmed that he's heard it too, and he has really, really good mail, like exceptionally good mail. So I'm backing that in. Grock doubled down on it last night, and then Cam Hicks messaged me today, who hasn't seen any of that unfold, saying that he's heard through another one of his connections that we're well into Harley Reid. What's your stance on the Harley Reid situation? If you're happy to get him, what would you be happy or not happy to give up?
I think, honestly, with this year, he's copping a lot of crap, and I think it's pretty unjustified. He's had a few games where he's been a bit like rough around the edges, but at the end of the day, people got to remember he's still a young player. He's learning. I would be really on board personally to get him. I just don't want to overpay for what we'd get him for. I'd be open. I remember you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember if it was on a stream or on one of the videos, but you were saying about along the lines of maybe presenting forward a pick as well as a player as a potential option. And if I heard a few people going on about things like Jaden Short, well, do we throw Jaden Short up on that trade table, and whatnot? But I think it would be a very exciting prospect to have him and Lawler, and if Smiley gets going, those three running around the midfield as well as Torino and Hopper, I think that'll be absolute carnage in the next few years.
It would be like, I guess Reid's attitude's been a bit shit this year, but he's obviously not happy. And we saw the same kind of thing with Bolton. Not so much that Bolton wasn't happy, but he had checked out, like he was wanting to go home. Baker as well. And it would be a generational midfield. But I wouldn't be giving up both picks this year. I'd be happy to give up one. If we can go to the draft and get a Duff Tytler or a Sharp or a Dersma or whatever and a Harley Reid, that's a good off-season. Assuming that we get the Harley Reid of 2024 and his attitude, kind of like Horn Francis, how it changed as soon as he got to Adelaide. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. There's going to be a lot to play out there, I guess. But
100%. It'll only time will tell. I think it's a very exciting prospect getting him down there, but not worth giving up that amount of picks. I think if we can strike a good deal, whether or not, because I can't remember, is he off contract or would he still have like a year or two left? I can't remember.
I don't know for fact, but I was under the impression that he's obviously, I thought he was contracted this year and I thought it ran out next year, but
I can't remember. Because that's the thing. If he's still under contract, we're going to have to pay a massive amount to get him out of it.
Yeah, we
kind
will.
of like what they did with Bolton and Rioli when we got all those picks. And I think if that's the case, as sad as it is, I don't think we worry. I reckon we hit the draft, and that's what I was going to lead to and ask you is, I've been looking at this McCarthy guy. Like, do you think that he comes to us? Where do you think he's touted to go? Because he's very impressive, this young fella.
For the VFL McCarthy in our team.
Yeah,
it's interesting because obviously a lot of the talk is about Massimo Razzo, who's a talented and very exciting footballer. I just don't think Razzo fits the right need for us at the moment because we've got Steely Green, Morris, and Seth Campbell and all that, Ryan Mansell. So I feel like if we got Razzo, he'd probably still be playing VFL, which seems kind of pointless. Where to your point, McCarthy playing off halfback, I actually think he feels more of a need. And if Short's not doing what we need him to do, maybe that's a way to either A, put a fire under him, or B, try something different and get someone who's prepared to use the ball by foot and hand and take the game on. So if we're talking about needs-based, I think McCarthy is our number one need from the mid-season draft. But we need to find a pick first. We've got to find a way to get someone on the list.
Exactly, and that's just what the club approaches players and has a chat to them or tries to strike something up. But I do know, and I've heard through the grapevine, my old man knows quite a few people in Melbourne and a little bit around the club, and the club is, I mean, it's probably no surprise, but is heavily targeting Lewis Kellaway, and they're going on about how unreal he's been, and watching him play, he's just a prospect. He is a very, very good young player.
He's been good, and I've been doing the highlight videos for him for the start of this year for his first 6 games. And the round 1 game, I was a little bit disappointed with what I saw, but it was horrible conditions. It was blustery. It was shit house. But honestly, his last month has been very, very good. Now, I know people will say the Sandford under-18s is not the same equivalent to Coates League under-18s, and I get all that. But you can only play who's in front of you. And the week just gone, he had 31 disposals, 1 goal, 8 marks, 5 clearances, 5 tackles, and his disposal by foot and hand's been really good. Like, and I shouldn't get into arguments on Facebook, but I had someone try and tell me that his disposal shithouse doesn't hit a target. I'm like, what part of these last 3 videos says that he's not hitting a target? Like the video, it clearly shows he's doing it. But I feel like he's getting better and better. And what's interesting with him is he's finished his schooling a year ahead of what he should have. So he's now just fully concentrating on football. And I know
that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Been into him for a while, and it'd be awesome to see him play senior football. I don't know whether it will happen or not, but obviously the next best thing is the champs because he's playing for South Australia. So hopefully we see some good signs there.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of exciting times ahead. I think the best thing is like everyone just has to accept, as crap as it is to hear at the end of the day, that we are a bottom 4 side as much as it's painful to hear. But in the next few years, we'll be a top 4 side. You know, it's part and parcel of footy. Swings and roundabouts. It happens, as crappy as it is, but you just got to live with it.
Out of interest, so you talk about us sort of coming back up the ladder. What's your level of expectation like? Like, when do you think that you might start seeing Richmond knocking on the door of finals again?
Like making top 8 or top 4? Or
maybe not top 4, but let's say top 8. When do you see us pushing for top 8 again?
I think if we keep running out the way we are now, the rest of this year, and notch up a few wins, if we can rack up at least like another 2 or 3 wins, I think given maybe another 2-3 years' time, we might be knocking on the door. Hopefully not finishing 9th again for that lovely meme. But I do think I heard that enough through school. That was wonderful growing up. But yeah, no, I think realistically, if we continue the growth that we're on, I think in I'd say maybe 5 years max, but minimum I'd say maybe 3. I can see that. It just depends what the players kind of want to do, because you look at Hawthorn, like they were they've been rebuilding for the last 3 to 5 years, and they were shocking. They were struggling massively. Same position what we were in, getting belted, but they had signs. They had these young players coming through like Watson, and I can't think of the bloke that plays on the wing. Ambrosio, is that his name? I couldn't think off the top of my head.
Yeah, he got there a couple of years ago. Weddle was another one who was coming through the ranks. But you're right. Like, I use them as my comparison as well, to be honest. And hopefully we can, reach their heights, because they're doing pretty well at the moment. But long way to go for us. But it's all good fun watching. Yeah,
because everyone, I think, forgets as well. Everyone was smacking Sam Mitchell from pillar to post, going, "Why has he got this job? Like, he doesn't need to be here. Sack him." And the same thing's on Uze, and the same thing was on Dimmer. Like, it happens. You're losing games. People want to cut the coach. It's like the first thing. That doesn't solve problems. It just creates more issues, because players are then having to go, "Oh, crap, we got a new coach. We now have to learn what he wants to do."
100%.
Whereas you just got to stick fat. And that's what they did with Dimmer, and he repaid it in dividends. He, brought us the glory years. And I think that in time, if they can allow Uze to figure out what he wants to do, as good as a player he was, I think he can become a really good coach too. I think he just needs to figure out what his direction is he wants to go and how he wants to play. And I think last year he kind of tried to mimic it around the style that Dimmer had, and I don't think personally that's for him. It looks like he's found a bit of a more slowed down ball control kind of approach, but at the same time he loved the thing that I've seen is he's loving the use of our ball off halfback, trying to get that run and carry going. So it'll be interesting to see what he tries to get going moving forward over the next few years. So
yeah, I'm with you. We've got to give him the time. So I'm not going to judge him until 2027, which might seem like, well, it is a long way away, but you've got to let him have a crack at building this himself. And that's why I'm so glad that ours in the entire AFL, that the environment's not like EPL, where if there's 4 bad games, manager, bang, gone. Next guy in. And the inconsistency is unbelievable, but they're so heavily results driven, which I get. It's a professional sport, but I'm glad that we're happy enough to sort of stick fat with a coach and just let him do his thing and see what comes of it. There's no point sacking the guy until he gets a season or 2 out of everyone once they've hit 70, 80 games, because that's when we can tell what they're going to be like.
And the good thing is as well, when you think about it, I think the reason why we were so successful for that period is because Dimmer came into charge alongside Dusty and Koch and Rewat. Well, they were still relatively younger players, so they had a lot of time to gel and learn the play style that they wanted. And look what they did for the club, And I think that moving forward, while it's hard to say whether Uze or not will be our next premiership coach, but I definitely think he'll be our next top 8 coach. You know, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of, as a player who's a very smart footballer, and I think there are signs there with some of the players that he selects, and some of his strategies he tries out every different weeks, and that's okay to do. I think next week, I was mentioning it earlier with the West Coast game, I would love to see him bring in some more younger guys to give their midfield minutes. I would love it if they could try and get Sam Lawler through at least half a game in the midfield next week to try and give him some experience against another team that is also struggling in that experience department, because then I feel like he would feel a bit more comfortable.
It's a good shout,
as opposed to a game like today where, you know, Hawthorn is a top 4 side. They're a bit of a threat, and they were last year. So I think they need to try and just keep trying a few different things, and like at the end of the day, they're out there, and we get to watch them play. You know, if they're not out there playing, we don't get to watch the game of footy. So I think that's what we got to be grateful for as supporters at the end of the day, and just stick with them, and time will tell, and they'll deliver for us. I firmly believe one day we just got to hang in there with them and ride the highs and the lows.
I completely agree, Black Crow. So I appreciate you jumping on and having your thoughts. I'm
thank
glad
you.
you're able to make time to get on. It was really, really good to hear from you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully I'll be able to join a bit more and chat a bit more in the future about it. I love anything to do with the footy. I'm mad about it. So
no, it sounds good. Welcome back anytime, mate. So we'll fire it up again, hopefully next week, and hopefully it's after a win, and we can be a bit more positive about it all and celebrate a victory, which would be nice.
It would be nice, especially against Baker and Graham too. That would be really lovely.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So thank you again, mate. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thanking you.
All right, well, that is a wrap for the fan camper tonight. A massive thanks again to everybody who jumped on. I appreciate all the thoughts from everybody. It's good to, whether you want to vent, whether you want to sing praises, whatever it is, it's what the platform's for all of you guys to jump on and have your say. So I appreciate everyone's time jumping on tonight. Very much appreciated. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow night for the live show, 8:30 p.m. It'd be interesting to see what the guys come up with and what they thought of the game. And then we'll obviously have our votes, which will be very interesting as well. So, make sure you keep an eye out for that tomorrow night. I'll have a look and see if there's any Louis Kellaway highlights again from this weekend. I'll suss that out as well. But other than that, there's a video dropping tomorrow morning about Harley Reid. I've given a bit of an update there. So keep an eye out for that on YouTube as well. But that's it for tonight. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. And I will see you all tomorrow night. Go Tigers.